Okay, this is my wife's Quantum Smoke 30. It's kind of like the Inshore, except I don't think it's made for salt water necessarily. You have to take better care of it. Anyway, it started acting up lately, started getting bound up and hard to turn, which is weird because I had them all apart, including this reel, about 2 months ago. Cleaned them all out, oiled them back up and back together, and everything was fine. But this one started acting up, and I think I know what it might be. When we get into it, then I'll see if I'm right. Okay, first thing we're going to do is remove the spool. So it spins easy, comes off, and then off goes the spool. Next thing we're going to do is take off the back cover. There's a screw there and a screw there. You just need a small, good, high-quality screwdriver so you don't screw up the head of it, but that'll come off here real easy. Now that I got the back cover off, I can kind of see the problem. Those gear teeth right there chewed up, and this gear, this pinion gear, is also a little chewed up, I noticed. Had some weird kind of wear on it. They're not made of the hardest materials, aluminum and brass, and sometimes worse than that. So anyway, I'm going to have to replace those two gears. And I think what happened was when I took these apart to clean them, I lost one of the bearings and didn't know it. We went fishing, my wife used it, and I think with the handle moving around like that, it took it out of alignment, and that's what ground up these gears. Anyway, I found a new bearing, it's back in, but the damage was done, and I didn't realize it till we went to go use it, and it started acting up. So now we're going to repair it. Then we go ahead and take off the handle. You do that by simply just making the handle go backwards, and it comes right off, just like that. Next, we're going to take the bail off. This is a bit more complicated. There's a lot of parts stacked here, and they have to be in the order that they're in. So I'll show you how I go about making sure I get that put back together. Plus, the nice thing about Quantums is they come with a exploded parts diagram, so you can kind of see how everything goes back together, but I'd rather not have to mess with it. So anyway, here we go. First thing we're going to do is take off this little retaining pin. I don't know if you can see it right there. Yeah, but just popping it out. Take the first bearing off. Set it next to the clip. Try to get the next bearing off. Then there's a little pin. There's a little pin right here. You have to kind of knock that out. Take out your sprocket. Take out your retaining screw. Remove the standoff. Then finally you can remove your nut and do it with one of these so you don't mess it up. Now your bail is off and you have access to the pinion. And the next thing I like to do is take a picture of the parts in the order they were in. Next we're going to remove the retainer plate for the pinion and the bearing. Fortunately, these screws come out pretty easily. Okay, I was able to wiggle this loose with just a little bit of willpower here. So this comes off. Again, set in order on the second row here. And there's your bearing and your pinion. Now we just got to see how we get the bearing and the pinion out. Okay, we're going to stop at this point and start working on the sides. There's 3 screws each, and the retainer plates, the bearings come out, and then all the gears should come out. This we really got to pay a lot of attention to. First thing we're going to do is remove the dust cap that goes on the other side where you can swap the handle around. They're going to remove these 3 screws on each side. It should come apart. The tool for this is a number 6, says T6 spline. Okay, it's important to know that once you get these screws out, this plate is also the holder for this small gear right here. So when you take this plate off, that gear is going to come loose and you could probably take it out of the casing. But for just a note for reassembly, you can't put this on without that gear in place, otherwise the reel won't work. There's the gear right there. And I'm going to put that right back on. So I know that's where it goes. Get to the other side. So for this side, you just lift up on the gear right here and the whole top kind of pops off. Thought that was kind of cool. There we go. And there's your access for your bearing for all this gearing. Now we should be able to disassemble the rest of this. Okay, we're going to remove the clutch assembly. This is the anti-reverse clutch assembly. It's a little complicated in there, and there is a little tiny spring, if you can see right there. You have to be very careful, because if you lose that spring, you may not be able to get another one too easily. First thing I'm going to do is take a picture of it so that I can make sure I can get this back together the way it's supposed to. Okay, so taking this apart, you're going to need a really good pair of little needle nose pliers. First thing you're going to do is remove the spring. The spring is off that little post. And grab your pliers and just gently pull up, and this should all come out. There you go. All came out. There's your retainer plate. Go ahead and set these parts aside. I like to take the little spring and put it in a cup right there to hold all my little parts. Next thing we're going to do is remove the retainer plate. Okay, so you've got to move the anti-reverse. Get it in that notch. You should be able to pull this plate out of there. There we go, just like that. Now you have your pinion loose from everything, comes right out. Get the bearing out. Once you get the clutch out and the pinion out, this all kind of gets loosey-goosey. See, the bearing's been removed. I didn't remove it on this side yet. There's another little guide rod right here that you have to push through the front side. And if you just pull on this guide rod, there you go, then this should come right out. There we go. Okay, to get the rest of the gear assembly out, you just simply unscrew this retaining screw. Make sure you don't lose it. And this one should come right out there. Okay, we got the gear assembly out next to the new one. You can kind of see where it's chewed up right on that side compared to that nice looking sharp teeth on that one. Same thing on the pinion. You can see how the pinion's kind of ground where it's shiny right there. It's the new one. Looks much better. So we're going to clean all the old parts up and start reassembly. To reassemble with the new parts, we just do everything in reverse order. Okay, first thing we're going to do is get our drive gear put back in. And we put our other gear back in. So we got our other gear back in right there. I'm just kind of holding it in place till we can get this screw in. Be careful not to cross thread it. There we go. Put our bearing back over the drive gear shaft. Okay, so that gear assembly's back together. You have to make sure that this little tab fits in this little notch here, because it slides up and down as the thing goes back and forth. The guide rod is right here. It goes in the back. And it fits through the little hole. That little hole right there goes all the way through the body and comes out the other side. And that keeps this on track. You got to make sure it's in the groove while simultaneously. First thing you do is going to put a bearing over the pinion shaft right there, and then that goes over this, and you want it to mesh gently with the drive gear. I was able to get the bearing back into its seat for the pinion gear. I don't want to do too much here, but you know, you can see it sort of spins. When things get lined up, then it becomes easy to spin, but that's how it's supposed to go together. We're going to go ahead and put our retainer clip back on the top here to keep this from popping back out, and then we'll put in our side plate for our drive gear bearing. So this starts right here like this, and again you have to turn the inverse lever to the middle so it fits in this notch right there, and then seat it down there. Okay, we got that one started. the other one started. A little grease on the tip will help keep the screws in place until you get them seated. There's a little Loctite, blue Loctite on there. I'm going to leave it on there like it is. These things don't really come apart like that if you snug down the screws. They just have to be snug. I think nice and tight in there now. Now you can see everything turns. Nice and good. We're going to put our side plate back on to retain that. There's our side plate. Next we're going to put our other side plate and the little connection gear. Hopefully get that together. Put the bearing back in the other side. We're just going to drop this little connection gear right into place there. And then take our side plate and hopefully we can get it all lined up. There we go. Everything's kind of working. Okay, next we're going to put the anti-reverse clutch system back on. It's a little tricky, and we have one little tiny spring right here that we have to, actually it goes on like this. There we go. The other end of this little spring here goes over this little tab right there. And then the 3 metal tabs on the clutch fit in these plastic little notches. So you can really go in one way. We take our collar, there we go. Next we have to move clutch in position. Okay, we managed to get the clutch back in there. You can see the spring holding it to the lock side. As you click the anti-reverse, you can see how it draws it in and it draws it out. See that? That engages and disengages the clutch. So you can have your anti-reverse. In that position, you can pretty much spin both ways. Close it the other direction. It only goes one direction. So that's the way it's supposed to work. Okay, next we're going to place or put back our clutch retaining plate with the bearing in there. Make sure the bearing's in there. And that's these longer screws right here. Okay, we're putting the bail back on. One thing you want to do is force this pinion gear all the way forward, because if you don't, you won't get enough threads out of the other end to bolt on the bail. So you just hold it with one hand, kind of get it on there. There you go. Now you can see you have enough threads coming out right there. Take your nut. And you don't have to tighten this down real tight, just kind of snug. Like that. Now we're going to add back in our shaft collar, our sprocket, washer, bearings, and things like that. So we'll do that here real quick. Okay, once you get your bail nut back on, don't forget to put your retaining screw right here, or you have 2 choices depending on what flat side of the nut is. That's just a lock to help keep this nut engaged. I believe this is our screw right here. It's kind of a flat, wide one. Let's put that in there like that. There we go. Okay, next we're going to replace our spool collar, sprocket, and all that good stuff. So first thing you do is grab your collar, put it on there. Go and slip over your washer, your sprocket, and the washer. Remember, same order it came in. There we go. Okay, drop in your pin, get it flushed up. Now this bearing is what's going to hold that pin in from falling out. So go ahead and get your bearing on there. There we go. Tight fit, it's on there. Your second bearing. There we go. Your retaining clip. I like to just take some pliers to hold it. And you can put it around there and push it on. There you go. Okay. Quantum makes their own proprietary reel grease or reel oil. It's called hot sauce. That's what I recommend using. Into the sides. I'm going to get everything done up here. Can't really grease them too much. And down to the gears. to the bearings. Got her good and lubed up. Okay, now this, I'm going to put to get the back cover on. You want to put the anti-reverse in the middle position. This little pin goes in this hole here. Got our cover back on. We're going to put our dust cover back on here. And then we can put our handle back just forward. Okay, turn the anti-reverse on. Finally, we're going to put our spool back on. Like it's brand new. Well done.